You are now listening to the Unscripted Ohio Podcast, brought to you by Buckeye Grove. For all the latest Buckeyes news, analysis, reaction, and the best Ohio State community on the entire internet, head over to BuckeyeGrove.com or follow us on Twitter at Ohio State Rivals. Without any further delay, it's time to get unscripted, broadcasting from Podcast Central, a place that is not his mother's basement.
Hey, Mom! Can we get some meatloaf?
We promise. Here's your host, Kyle Lamb.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf!
Good Friday. Welcome back to the Unscripted Ohio Podcast. Whew, what a night it has been. I will not bore you with the details, but my goodness, getting this one off the ground has been a chore in itself. So we are brought to you by BuckeyeGrove.com. I am your host, Kyle Lamb, and with me tonight, painstakingly, I'm putting them through hell joining me tonight, but Johnny Lunsford and Corey Thompson have graciously decided to grace me with their presence. Boy, guys, I tell you what now, we did the mid-season roundtable in October, and our world has changed so much since then. Think about everything that has been different since the last time we spoke. Ryan Day has taken over for Urban Meyer. Al Washington and Greg Madison are no longer Michigan coaches. Instead of Dwayne Haskins and Tate Martell, Ohio State's quarterbacks are Justin Fields and Matthew Baldwin. It is a completely different situation, and we're going to discuss some of that today. Johnny, man, do you have this many problems doing a normal podcast with Corey? Because I got to say, he must be bad luck or something.
You know, I would love to take the bait here and say, yeah, it's him. He's the jinx, but I'm going to pass the buck on this one. No, usually the recording audio-video issues go pretty swimmingly with Mr. Thompson, so that just leaves you, my friend, as the as the ugly duckling here.
Corey, I tried to put the blame on you here, man, and he didn't take the bait. I'm not happy about this. I don't want to take any responsibility for any of the problems. It's like Michael Scott on The Office. I want all of the credit and none of the blame.
I don't blame you for that, but you know what, Johnny? I gotta say I appreciate you not taking an easy shot. I mean, that was low hanging fruit, but he knows I do all the editing and I control everything he says. So,
well, in the future,
you gotta be nice to me.
In the future, maybe I'm gonna have you do the recording because my goodness, it took us what, a half hour? I mean,
it was I was 15 minutes late just so we could be another half hour late.
That's 15 minutes late Johnny time. It was probably more like 30 minutes late, I think, by the time we actually got you on. Yeah, but we've had a real chore here getting going. So next time I think I'm going to have Corey do the recording, and so I can just sit back and be glorious and do my talking, and we won't have any issues. So, okay, like we've got a lot we could cover, and I know we've got some issues here, some things we want to go over. But, Corey, I'm going to start with you. So, looking back, man, I've got some interesting questions about how this is going to all play out, because now we have the Ohio State staff in place. We think we know the quarterback for Ohio State for next year, and unless the NCAA does something crazy. So, really, it's going to come down to, is Ryan Day the real deal? What changes in the program? And we've got a few things that we're going to talk about later. We're going to get into, recruiting Ohio. That's one thing that looks like it's going to change just a little bit, maybe, and how they go about recruiting. So for you, what are the question marks as Ohio State heads into the offseason with the new staff in place?
Well, the first question mark for me was who's going to call the plays, because I didn't know if Ryan Day was going to go the Sean McVay route and call them himself. But if you look at the way the titles are lining up, with Kevin Wilson being the only one with an OC title, I'm starting to think maybe Wilson will be the guy who calls the plays, and Ryan Day maybe takes more of the head coaching responsibility on. So if that changes, how does Ryan Day go from play caller, QB guru to overall head coach? That's the question, I think, in my opinion. How's the team going to look, and how are they going to react, and how are they going to play, and how are they going to address those situations that Urban Meyer was so brilliant at during the game and managing the game, now that he's got to elevate himself beyond being responsible for one side of the ball. So it'll be interesting to see that. But I don't know if did you notice that too? They look like they don't have co-OCs anymore. It's going to be Kevin Wilson's the OC.
Yeah, Mark Givler was saying that on Buckeye Grove on Thursday. He mentioned that he thought it was interesting that Kevin Wilson was named offensive coordinator and run game coordinator but Mike Yurcich was only the pass game coordinator. He wasn't actually considered a co-offensive coordinator.
Exactly. So I'm wondering if, and I'm good with that because Wilson's proven himself to be an amazing play caller in the past. So I think that's actually a good move for Ryan Day. Of course, he's going to be involved. I mean, we all know that, but I like a head coach who doesn't call the plays. I think that's just a better formula. It's not perfect for everyone, but I think it's just a better formula. Urban Meyer didn't just solely call plays; never actually been a play caller in his career. So that's what I'm wondering as far as the first question mark. How does Ryan Day elevate himself to be that game manager rather than just in charge of how the offense is running?
Johnny, does that alleviate on your timeline for this season the whole too many cooks in the kitchen? Because I think this whole co-coordinator thing, or I know you guys are my co-podcast hosts or co-assistants to the podcast hosts, I guess it would be called. But I think the co-coordinator titles are overblown as far as a criticism is concerned, because I don't think very often you actually have too many cooks in the kitchen, because usually they know their roles. But does that, at least in perception, does that kind of get rid of some of the concern that maybe people would have about this?
Yeah, I think so. I think the title thing was just, I'll admit I raised my hand loud and proud. I made fun of it. But I look, these guys are professionals making millions of dollars. I think that the titles were more for allurement, prestige, and getting these people in. Bringing in Yurcich. He's already been an offensive coordinator. Well, you have to call it something so it doesn't sound like he's coming over for a demotion. The same thing on the defensive end. So yeah, I think that is exactly right. It's not too many cooks in the kitchen. That the responsibilities will be delegated completely, and it'll be clear. It'll be concise. You may run into some tweaking and things like that. I'm still not sure to this day what the system Tim Beck and Ed Werner had was, or if there ever was a play call.
Spray and pray, my friend. Spray and pray.
Halfback dive, check. Oh, they're pinching and blitzing. Oh, halfback dive.
It was a little more advanced than Jim Bowman's Dave left, Dave right, but it was a step forward at least.
Yeah, and shout out to Kevin for that tweet, by the way, of the Bowman playbook. I nearly died when it said trick play and it was a quick slant.
Do you guys remember there was a meme a couple years ago making its way around, and it was absolutely brilliant. It was Jim Bowman playbook, and it had a picture of the original Tecmo Bowl play chart. You had four plays, like you press like A or B. It was like that was the Jim Bowman playbook. It was glorious.
No, I don't think we'll have that problem this year. Maybe if anything, a lot of cooks in the kitchen, like you said. But when it comes down to it, all those cooks will just be adding ingredients to a complex playbook with Ryan Day's philosophy, and then you'll have one final guy with the say-so on situational calling. Just like Urban said, when he was the head coach, Ryan would call plays, he would approve them, and I think that's the order you'll have now.
Corey, there's a lot of emphasis and focus on what Greg Studrala is going to do this year. I think he's probably, if there's an assistant coach on the hot seat, it's going to be him. And I'm not saying he should be or is, but he's going to be the primary focus this year because of being, one of the primary, guys returning and the question marks last year. And Kirk Barton and I were having this discussion the other day, and I'm curious your take, because I think if there is one concern right now with Ryan Day's offense, and we don't know what it's going to be exactly, based on year number one of the Dwayne Haskins era, we might ask, will this be too much of a pass-happy offense at times, or was that out of necessity because of the lack of consistent running game? But then it begs the question, can you have an aggressive physical offensive line if you lean too much towards the pass, and can they run when they need to run? So to me, I'm curious to see, will this go back to, Urban's 250 type of offense and try to be as balanced as possible? And if not, will it impact their power running game going forward?
Well, what concerns me most is, you read last year that the offensive line kept being confused by the RPO, the idea of the concept of an RPO, and it just, okay, well, Justin Fields, if he's the quarterback, which he most likely will be, that's perfect for him. The RPO is perfect for a guy like Fields. So it's kind of it's a little frustrating to hear that, okay, well, they struggle with that concept. But obviously last year, I think it'll be a little bit of an anomaly because unless we get another guy who just cannot run laterally like Haskins at all, I think he had to force feed the passing game with Haskins at quarterback. Not that it didn't work; it worked pretty beautifully most of the time. But I don't think you'll see, as much as I think Fields is a great passer, I don't think you'll see another. What did Haskins have? 200 yards rushing all year. I think you'd have Fields take it a little bit back more to where J.T. Barrett had it, but maybe a better passer than J.T. Barrett. More of a 600 to 800 yard rusher, along with the really solid, strong passing numbers as well. So I think actually you'll see more of a balance this year, in my opinion. Coming, I think you'll see a more elevated pass game than what we saw with Beck and Werner, obviously. But I think you'll see more going back more to a balance, especially with you're going to have Dobbins basically carrying the load this year. So it'll be interesting, but I really see a balance coming.
Johnny, you love a good paradox. Chicken or the egg. With Ohio State this year, was the lack of a running game at times due to a pass-happy offense, or was the pass-happy offense due to the lack of a run game?
I think it was the latter. I think there was not much of a run game, so we had to throw the ball. And I think it was a transition process. It's college football. It's Ohio State football. We pound the football. Well, that midseason, like that Minnesota, Nebraska, Michigan State funk, that midseason there, you could see, man, we just can't run it. And by late season, when the offense hit full stride, second half of the Northwestern game, all of the game against Michigan, and even the bright spots against Washington in the Rose Bowl, besides when we ran on their 3-3-5 front, because you have to, the offense clicked when we threw the ball. When we threw the ball, the offense clicked, and it got to where I was okay with it. Mid-season, I was like, nope, get mean, get nasty, have an offensive line with an attitude, move people off the ball, and run the ball, control the clock. Too much finesse game. And then I saw the strengths of this team, and then I realized what Dwayne Haskins was, and then I was like, nope, just let it rip. And like Corey said, I think we go back to a little more balance this year.
But you know what? Mid-season, I was thinking to myself, watching this offense, I'm like, well, these guys are as effective as a Corey slump buster. I mean, they were not. They were not getting it done. But I will say this: like in terms of total yardage at the end, I didn't think that they were great. But at the end of the year, I felt like they were getting those 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 runs and being tough and getting the yardage they needed, at least at the end of the year. I mean, Dwayne Haskins took over, and I think that there was a good balance at that point, just in terms of running just enough to be effective. And, that's, to me, that's all they need to do. They need to do it enough to have that mindset that they can do it. And I thought that they did that late in the year. Corey, I mean, to me, like, I think it's going to be a little bit better than that next year because, like you said, Fields is going to have the RPOs, the read option available to him. He's going to be able to run more and more effectively than Haskins did. And I think that mindset and mentality, just having it available and using it a little more often, I think next year they've got a recipe for success there.
Yeah, and I also another thing that you could consider, if DeMario McCall gets to play running back, that's a really nice change of pace back if you let him play a little bit more. I don't know if it'll be him or Master Teague. Maybe even throw a little Jalen Gill in there at some point. He's playing receiver right now, but you just never know how they switch positions all the time. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Maybe even a freshman like a Crowley comes out of nowhere. But still, that being said, I think that as much as I love Weber and I think Dobbins and Weber is a great tandem, I actually think Dobbins and DeMario might actually complement each other a little bit more than what Weber and Dobbins did. But I do agree. I think you'll have that balance. But another thing to consider, the offensive line now, Stud is on the hot seat, but the offensive line might actually, in terms of where they were rated when they were recruited, might become even more talented next year. If you get Wyatt Davis starting, Josh Meyer starting, Brandon Bowen likely back to left guard or so.
Agree.
And maybe, it's down. It might be a downgrade from Prince to Allaby, but Allaby held his own pretty. If he's the right tackle, I don't know. It could be Petit Freer, and there you go again. If it could be even considered more talented going forward. But if it's Allaby at the right tackle, he actually held his own really well in the Rose Bowl. So he's definitely shown the ability. So I actually think that the offensive line, if once it gels, it'll take a couple games. Obviously, combined with the new balanced offense, will actually shine a little bit, and Stud might actually look pretty good by the end of the year.
A little anecdote. I was driving down 10th on campus a couple weeks back, and I saw Petit Frere. He was getting food. He was getting burgers. I think it was Five Guys, and
I hope
and
it's a lot of
somebody.
burgers.
Yeah, that's where I was going with this. I saw.
Did you
I,
buy him
I
some
saw-
more, Kyle? We need him.
No, but that's the funny thing. I was thinking to myself, I'm like, well, this is this bag of burgers and fries from Five Guys, and I'm like thinking to myself, well, I'm looking at him, and I mean, it's like clearly too thin. I'm like, man, we need to chip in and have a Five Guys fund for Petit Frere because they got to get him on some more burgers because I mean the guy's lean and everything, but for a tackle, he's probably a little bit too lean right now.
Like,
You know,
I
maybe-
know you guys get a stipend, but here's an extra 20. Get a pizza, dude. Just add it on there.
If it's not an NCAA violation, maybe that's what we can do for future partners and sponsors of this network, Kyle, is, like for every retweet we get of the show, so-and-so chimes in some food money for NPF to bulk him up a little bit.
We'll start the Go Feed Me, Go Fund Me campaign. Bulk up Nicholas Petit Frere. That's the motive here of the Unscripted Ohio and Scarlet Gray podcast. We're trying to lend a helping hand and get that boy fed because he needs some protein on him.
I've never met an offensive lineman who doesn't like to eat. That's just crazy to me.
I guess it's true what they say. Some guys just have better metabolisms than other.
I guess. What's he burning? Like 6,000 a day? He's like, I can't eat enough. Guys, stop. He's like Homer Simpson in hell eating all them donuts. I mean, that's just
Hey,
Yeah,
Johnny,
just
did you hear the news? Urban Meyer is magically healed.
Yes, I think that is, modern medicine, like the famous Ricky Bobby says, with his high level of income and modern advances in science and medicine, there's no reason to think he won't live to be 230, 240 years old. What a bunch of hogwash. I mean, people referring to, Urban is being an assistant athletic director, a position that without him isn't even in use right now. So, not saying there's not an assistant AD, but I'm saying it's not him. Therefore, his responsibilities can't be that great. Also, and a broadcaster, people trying to say that somehow is akin to the stress level in teaching a class, that it is akin to the stress level at a place like Ohio State is absolutely nuts to me. Oh, you mean you can't handle one of the most stressful jobs in the world? I guess you can't do anything. Stay at home and clean the windows. So ridiculous. That's like, I always make a Navy analogy. It's what I've done with my life the last decade. So sorry, you have to bear through one more. I'm actually in the process for medical
not going to
separation.
just be one more. We know that.
Yeah, one more right now. I'm in the process for medical separation from the Navy right now, Kyle. It would be ridiculous, right, if somebody would come along at whatever my next path of employment is and say, well, I thought you were medically retired. I thought you were hurt. Oh, I guess you got magically better because you're not staying at home. The amount of hate Urban Meyer conjures up from people because he's good at winning football games is insane.
Well, and people apparently don't comprehend the stressful life these coaches are living. I mean, they're working in season. They're literally working 18, 20-hour days. I mean, you can ask any coach's wife. They're not getting home sometimes until 2 in the morning, and then they're back at the office by 6 in the morning. I mean, they're not getting much sleep during the season, and that's not counting, all the recruiting phone calls, the babysitting, making sure guys are eligible, the fundraising, making sure guys are going to classes, and dealing with media obligations and coaches' call-in shows, and I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, being a coach is not glamorous. That's part of the reason why they're paid so much, but it is extremely stressful, especially when you're at a pressure cooker like Ohio State. So for anybody to, even compare flying across the country one day a week to go sit in a studio and analyze football games as opposed to being a head coach at a university, I mean, Corey, I know you're not the brightest bulb in the bunch, but I think you even know the difference in stress levels there.
I don't. When I first saw these tweets coming from, of course, it's other fan bases. I mean, Ohio State fans get it, but it just obviously they're trolling, and obviously I refuse to believe anybody's this dumb. It's just frightening.
Be careful.
Yeah, fair point. But I'm just when I see people, I just guess you could do it. It's like, okay, yeah, you're comparing apples and automobiles. It's so ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. There's a story with him and Tom Herman, where Tom Herman's wife was giving birth to their first child. I think it was the first child. And Urban's saying, yeah, but we got to look at film. So Shelley will drive, or whatever Michelle, is that her name? Will drive Michelle to the hospital. But it's my child. Yeah, but we got to look at film. That's how nuts this job is, and especially for a guy as detail oriented as Urban. Yeah, exactly. It's funny that when he went to his first gig as a commentator for ESPN, he actually got bored within a couple of months. That's how non-pressure filled it is. It's just, come on, guys. I get it. You don't like Urban, fine. You don't like Urban. You don't have to like Urban. I don't care. But at least have a brain. At least think this through before you say stupid crap.
There are some guys that just can't sit around and watch Desperate Housewives on television. I mean, they got to be doing something more in their lives to be fulfilled. And Urban is a coach by trade and by nature. And, him being away from football is just not going to fly. I mean, you listen to Shelley or read her tweets. I mean, you can tell. I mean, she has pretty much said as much. Urban is not somebody that's going to be able to sit around the house. He's got to have something to do. And so, the alternative for him going crazy and driving her crazy is to at least find him a way to be involved in football. And this is a good way that is not going to bring on these migraines and make the pain a lot worse. And, that's what he's got to do. And I think this is for his own benefit. I just don't think Urban is a guy that can sit around the house and just be fulfilled.
But, another thing, Kyle, I'm sure Fox, any major network that gets to have Urban Meyer help analyze football games, his name carries so much weight. But because of his status, you have to pay him. I'm sure they're attaching a nice paycheck to his responsibilities, and he gets to call his own shots on what he will work and what he won't work. But I say that to say, I'm sure they need the money, Kyle. I'm sure he just lost an $8 million a year job or whatever it was. The bills don't pay themselves. You know this. So why fault a man for trying to keep the lights on?
Well, given his... I was almost going to give a serious answer to this, obviously sarcastic quip, but he is living...
Who do you think's going to buy Shelley that new Peloton bike?
Well, he is now living off of that poor man's $100,000 a year associate athletic director salary, and that's just not going to cut it.
There's your GoFundMe.
Let's take up a collection. My gosh, he's got to feed his grandkids. Come on.
Oh, good grief! Hey, Corey. So speaking of Urban, so he, this is going to shock you. He is the winningest coach against top 25 teams in history forever. I know you're math challenged, but that's a long time. So
why do you have to hurt me?
How many is forever?
That's the little infinity, the INF. If you've ever seen that, that's what that means. But the one, problem Ohio State has had is not beating top 25 teams recently, but it's been the problem of not beating teams like Iowa and Purdue.
Top 75 teams.
Yeah, top 75 teams. So here is my question. This has been a bizarre trend here of Ohio State winning the big games, but losing those games. Is there anything you can point to that you think was going wrong that was causing these perplexing losses under Urban? And if so, is this something you see changing under Ryan Day? Because I know there are some people who say, well, there's no way he wins the overall number of games in terms of percentage that Urban was winning. But maybe he doesn't have to. Maybe he just has to win a couple more of those games like Iowa or Purdue, or maybe not lose by 28, 29, 30 points.
It's interesting because I've read so many different ways as to how he would coach the last few years. I've read the popular opinion that he delegated way too much and kind of was just a CEO and let the coordinators handle it. And I also read where he micromanaged too much. I have no idea which is true. All I know is the team, we go back to Iowa, I would like to pin it on the idea that they just came off one of the most emotional comeback wins in the program history of beating Penn State when they were down 21-3 at one point, in a game they had to have and a game they had to avenge from the year before. And just to come back like that is, emotionally draining. I actually worried about Iowa for that reason. It's like, I hope they're not. I hope they're emotionally up for this game. I'm hoping that has something to do with it. And Purdue, you look at the entire season, the team played uptight for the most part. I don't really know what the cause of that is. I don't want to speculate on it, mainly because you have a chance to sound like a real idiot by getting it completely wrong. But the team did play uptight all year, and everybody pointed to Purdue, even like back in July, that this could be a trap game. So I have no idea what happened. I know the effort, at least on the defensive side of the ball, just was not there that night. They just couldn't tackle for whatever. The scheming didn't make any sense. I can't explain guarding Rondale Moore with Malik Harrison. That doesn't make any sense to me. But that being said, I can't. I think it's ironically enough, even though it's the same kind of result for a mediocre team you're losing to like that on the road, it's for different reasons, in my opinion. Different causes throughout both seasons. The Clemson one's just because they were just that much better than us that year. So.
Well, rebuttal number one, I will attribute the Iowa loss to the pink locker rooms because I've been told that is the reason why Iowa wins every game in Iowa City is the pink locker rooms. And rebuttal number two, sir, we don't need a reason to sound like a bunch of idiots on this show. So
that's a good point. Yeah. No, I'm saving the idiocy for our show. I don't want to do it. I don't want to bring it over to your show. Your show's too good.
Well, you're way too late on that. I promise. There's plenty of idiocy here to go around. Johnny, what say you? Put your finger on the pulse here. What's the problem, and what does Ryan do? What does Ryan Day have to do? See, I told you, idiocy abound. There's plenty of it. What does Ryan Day? Oh, good grief. What does Ryan Day?
I know what you're saying. Yeah, I won't make you suffer through.
Yeah, please don't make me beleaguer this point anymore.
Yeah. Oh man, that's the $6 million question. Like Corey said, I think the first Iowa game, was all culture. It was a deflation from the week before. Maybe believe in some of your own hype. Urban was a master of playing the underdog. We certainly weren't we were the opposite of underdogs, just beating the number 2 team in the country, putting up over 500 yards on Penn State, going into Iowa. I mean, that was a game, Kyle, we had our best defensive player headbutt a quarterback. Now, I know things are happening fast, and I know there's lots and lots of that there rule book's real thick, and there's lots of I'm pretty sure we should know better than to headbutt people at this level. That one, I think, was a little bit of a mental lapse. The Purdue thing, to me, was a styles make fights. Styles make fights. We were all worried about Purdue about a week out, and I know some of us drove you crazy, Kyle, with how much we were worried about Purdue, but that was a styles make fights game. We run our linebackers up to the line of scrimmage. We struggle with slot receivers. They have a really good one. Different things like that. So to address it is I take each and every week really, really seriously. Don't believe your own hype. And then you have a stylistic flaw like we did on defense, maybe don't wait till week 7 or 8 to fix it. We never fixed the Purdue thing till about 3 weeks later with the linebacker scheme. So I would say attack each week with like a real sense of urgency. There was some lackadaisical effort, I think, to fix the defense throughout this year, and I think that's one thing that Ryan Day cannot do. Each week has to be a Super Bowl.
You got me. You were talking about headbutting quarterbacks, and for some reason, I was thinking to myself, well, that seems better than maybe Robert Reynolds choking out Jim Sorgi. That's probably headbutting.
That was good credit.
Headbutting is probably a step forward. Oh, good grief! We have really gone down paths here on. We have gone down paths I didn't want to go on. So you guys were talking about this the other day. Another thing that I wanted to touch on, kind of a difference between Ryan Day and Urban Meyer. You guys were talking about the in-state recruiting, and I thought this was an interesting subject that I wanted to hit on a few minutes too. So Jacob James, 2020 tackle from Cincinnati Moeller, committed to Ohio State this weekend. And, it's interesting because you guys were kind of the opinion that this is probably not a offer that Ohio State hands out maybe necessarily this quickly in the past under Urban Meyer, and I'm kind of in that opinion. Johnny, I'll start with you. I feel like, and I mean, Ryan Day certainly touched on this when he was introduced as head coach, last month, that he really wanted to make Ohio a priority. Now, I'm kind of the opinion sometimes this can be overrated. I think talent is talent. It doesn't matter where it comes from. But I also think that there is some degree of, maybe Ohio State has missed out on some really good players in the past from the state because they were not aggressively pursuing them. Do you think this is maybe the first sign that they will be a little more quick to offer some of these in-state talents?
It's real. I was thinking about this, and there's so many different ways you could go with this. I would really, before I could give a strong answer, would have to have the data in front of me of why was it they took this guy? Is there anything that jumps off the page, not his star ranking, which obviously doesn't, but is there something else that jumps off the page that you can explain it logically? No, it doesn't matter if this kid was in Texas. If he was the exact same player, we would still offer him, or Louisiana, et cetera. And was this a guy Urban would slow play? Sure. But if he wasn't in Ohio, would it change him slow playing? So this can offer a shift, but I just think you see more. You need to see more of this before you can say, well, that's Ryan Day saying Ohio is really, really important to me, because I think missing out on like a Jackson Carman, that's different than missing out on this kid, Jacob. For some reason, I keep wanting to call him Jacob Jacobson because I am so obsessed with how these kids' parents teach them to spell their names.
Just call him Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt.
Yeah. Well, Corey, here's something interesting. I saw people actually complaining, well, Ohio State didn't get Jackson Carman. Okay, but they replaced them with the number one. Jackson Carman was the number 2 consensus tackle in the country. Guess what? They replaced him in that class with Petit Free, who we talked about earlier. We need to get that boy some more burgers. He was the number 1 tackle.
Get on it, Kyle.
He was the number 1 tackle in that class. So at the end of the day, they still replaced the Ohio kid with somebody equally or arguably more talented. And that to me is like when I hear people say, well, they have to have Ohio kids. Well, it depends. If you get the Ohio kid because, you're going to miss out on the 4 or 5-star kid at the end of the class, then sure, you want the good Ohio kid. But if you're going to land a 4 or 5-star at that same position, then it doesn't matter where it's coming from, right?
I agree with that. I think people were just more shocked that we lost a top-rated Ohio kid more than anything. I actually, I'm not going to ever claim I didn't want Carman, but I wasn't totally sad to see him go. I actually remember on the podcast when I came out, I said, give Meyer a month. He's going to replace him. And because, Meyer's going to be super aggressive, and he's going to – I knew Nicholas Petit-Frere at that time was a possibility. I didn't know how much of one. And then, of course, you just start seeing the news late in the signing period, like, oh, my gosh, they got him. But you're right. If they can replace him with a kid who's arguably better, then, yeah, then that's a good move to go. But I think Zach Harrison gave us a scare, and then you start thinking, man, are we just not appealing to these Ohio kids anymore? The reason why I'm not saying Jacob James can't play. I'm just saying if you combine the fact he grew up loving Ohio State, that was his school growing up, I have to believe Urban would have said, well, we'll come back to him. And like he's done a lot of these kids. And then you see J.D. Duplain, Nick Samak, or whatever his name is. You see Nolan Rumler, guys like these starting to just leave Ohio and not really even consider Ohio State as much. I mean, J.D. Duplain kind of did. But you start to wonder, are they – it led me to believe maybe they're going for a Jacob James because they don't want to try to come back to him later and try to get him in the class later on when he's a legitimately decent enough talent or good enough talent. Let's say decent, that's mean. Good enough talent to be an Ohio State Buckeye. I'm not going to ever claim that coaches would recruit somebody who's not good enough to be
Is that any less mean than you just referring to the kid, whatever his name is, a few minutes ago?
The decent kid, whatever his name is.
the decent kid, whatever his name is.
Hope he's listening.
No, so I just couldn't say his name right. Is all. I don't get names right. Samak or Samak. How do you?
We don't believe in attention to detail here.
I didn't call Turjada Mitchell by his right name for like a year. It's just forget it. I can't do it. I can't pronounce names.
If anything, I love. I mean, Jacob James in his specific case, I like that offer just simply because he's the type of kid in the past you would see wind up becoming a 4 or 5-star offensive linemen and wind up at Notre Dame because those Moeller kids, the Cincinnati kids. Notre Dame has come in for so long and been successful at getting offensive linemen from that part of the state. So for me, I think that if they can just make that a trend, hit some of those offensive linemen that have turned out to be really good for Notre Dame in the past, which is the one area actually where Notre Dame has been consistently good at through the years. I mean, they haven't had a meaningful win in their program in a bowl game since 1994, but they have actually had a lot of offensive line talent. So for me, that right there is something that could be a good trend for them if they're able to start shutting down offensive line, closing out offensive linemen in that part of the state.
Yeah, and I'm not saying he can't play because you look at his film, and the thing I've been wanting more in our offensive lineman, he is nasty. That guy likes to hit people with bad intentions. I mean, he just finishes blocks. He doesn't matter. The whistle blew. I don't care. I'm gonna jump on you. I like the pickup. I think some people are crying because they see the 3-star and that's all they see, but. If you look at the film, I think he's going to definitely be a guard at the next level, but he's just going to be a road grader, and I enjoy that. I want more Pat F lines in the
I was personally upset because he had less than 1,300 Twitter followers, and I don't know what Ryan Day's trying to do to our program here.
It's all falling apart.
So Johnny, I don't know if you saw this, but this speaking of Paris Johnson and offensive linemen. So last week, after James committed to Ohio State, Paris Johnson puts out a tweet. We're starting out the 513 to 614 movement, basically referring to 3 2020 offensive linemen in that class from the Cincinnati area and going to Ohio State. And this was kind of funny because this caught a lot of flack. Vince Morrow, assistant football coach at Kentucky, tweeted about the 513 to 859 movement, jokingly, suggesting that those guys should go to Kentucky. And he has subsequently deleted the tweet, and it would be an NCAA violation, which I think is stupid, by the way. Coaches can follow recruits on Twitter. They can like tweets. They can retweet, but they're not actually allowed to tweet to the prospect. So that was kind of funny that he's catching so much flack for really a very simple simple gamesmanship. I don't know if you saw that, but I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, call them. Email them, sit with their mothers in the living room. You should come with a full pamphlet full of what your university has to offer. But by all means, do not pick up a social media app and type in their Twitter handle and then followed by a reply. Don't do that. I mean, stay the night at their house.
Corey would be banned from visiting the mothers.
Oh, absolutely. Corey, I mean, I don't know if he's allowed to do a podcast about the NCAA after his direct messaging Tate threatening to beat him up and if he didn't transfer and so on and so forth. Yeah, that
I did that like a man. I DM'd him first.
Like a man instead of tweeting at
Corey,
him. No,
I heard you were harassing him, man. Like you were just you were calling him out, calling him names, calling him a spoiled little brat. I mean, you were pretty vicious there, buddy.
I didn't call him a spoiled little brat.
At least he did it in the inbox. At least he did it in the inbox.
Yeah, I called him a goofy midget. I didn't call him a spoiled brat. Okay.
Good grief. Oh my god.
Okay, but yeah, nice gesture by the University of Kentucky coach to try to play big boy ball. There at the end, and I know
they had a 10-win season this past season. They're elite now.
Yeah. Hey, look,
they're a leader.
I think
they're
if
a leader, they didn't, or they beat somebody that's done being great.
If Kentucky thinks that they can start tweeting at recruits to land 4- and 5-star players from the state of Ohio, then I say, hey, more power to them. Good luck with that.
Absolutely. Yep. Show you're willing to break the rules and be edgy. Start tweeting at kids.
So speaking of recruits, Johnny, I heard a rumor that Corey is advocating for the abolishment of the early signing period because he thinks it's an absolute joke, and he does not see see any redeeming value whatsoever in forcing kids to sign early. I can you confirm
forcing
that?
Kids, I like that use.
Yeah, what was his stance? They don't sign anything until kickoff of the fourth game.
No, that's Bill Kurelich's stance when he predicts somebody going to school there.
It's nothing set in stone until they played a whole season.
Corey,
well, anymore, that's probably true.
Corey, I saw your thoughts on this on Twitter Thursday evening, and I was going to pile on, but I thought that'd be a little too cruel. But I was going to say, yeah, I'm I'm with the other guys on this. Like I don't think they're. If I were advising them, which thankfully for them I'm not, I would say don't sign a letter of intent whatsoever. I'm kind of on the other end of the spectrum here. So for those that missed this, so what we're talking about is there was a discussion going on Corey's Twitter timeline. You may have seen this, you may not have, but we were talking.
Probably didn't.
Probably didn't. But they were talking about whether or not there should be an early signing period in college football. And so Corey, I'm going to allow you to tell your real feelings here. I've kind of misled the audience a little bit on what you think about this.
It's normal on your show.
Yeah, it pretty much is. The facts be damned, right? So you can tell your stance on this, and you can give your rationale if you want.
My exact stance is I would agree with you. I would not advise anybody to sign early because I think the negatives outweigh the positives too. But that being said, I think there are some positives to the early signing period. For example, I think there are a lot of kids who just get harassed by coaches, especially 4- and 5-star kids. Just harassed. I mean, Garrett Wilson is a good example. He has been as pro Ohio State as you can get as a recruit. I think anybody who even knows anything about him knows he's unless Ryan Day was not going to be the head coach, he was going to Ohio State. That's it. And yet, once Urban retired, he got 5 or 6 calls from Notre Dame, Oklahoma. I mean, right away. Even though he hasn't given any indication that he's going anywhere else. So I completely disagree with some of the statements that were made to me about, if they just say they shut it down and then it's done. No, that's not even true.
Let me remind people too. There are 130 FBS institutions now, and so if you are a 4-star recruit that you're getting recruited by, let's say half, that's 60. Let's say 60 schools for sake of argument, and you suddenly commit somewhere. You're probably still going to get at least 30, 40, 50 different schools continue to call you. Now, even if you tell every single one of them, no thanks, I'm committed, I'm done, I don't want to hear from you anymore. Let's say even half of them respect your decision. Hashtag respect my decision, right?
Exactly.
Let's say half of them actually obey. That's still 10, 15, 20 schools that are still continuing to call. So I would say just telling people to stop bugging me is not going to shut down the process entirely.
And so if they sign that letter of intent, that shuts it down. I mean, that's at least one benefit. I'm not suggesting it outweighs everything, but for some kids, I've read it repeatedly every year. The last 2 years we've done it now. I'm just thankful to get it over with. That's what they say. And I get that's one benefit for this. Now, and again, it's not even just, one coach at these schools. It's not just the recruiting director at these schools. They have several coaches, several assistant coaches, quality control coaches. They just a million people at these schools who can call them and try to recruit them. And on top of the head coach from time to time. I mean, Lincoln Riley himself called Garrett Wilson as soon as Urban retired. I mean, it's not, and I'm sure it's flattering to kids like Garrett because he's an elite talent, but gosh, at some point, some of these kids, Zach Harrison, does he strike you as somebody who loved the recruiting process and wanted to be bothered all the time? No. So I look at it and say to people like, look, I understand that there's a lot of negatives to it. I understand that there's coaching changes that take place. That's a big reason why I would say that don't sign early. But at the same time, if a kid's like, look, I just want to go to this school. It seems like everything's lining up. I just want to be done with the process. That's a positive to me. If the kid can stop being bugged relentlessly, I mean, gosh, they're getting calls at midnight. How many times has Urban told a recruit, who just committed somewhere else, well, I'm still going to recruit you? I mean, that's legendary with Urban Meyer. He goes until the 12th hour, 13th, whatever the saying is, the 12th hour. I can't even say it.
The 11th hour.
The 11th hour.
That's the expression.
Well, yeah. Urban goes to the 12th tile.
He goes one higher.
Yeah, Urban goes above and beyond the Call of Duty. He goes to the 12th hour.
13th hour. Screw all of you. But anyway, how many times does he do that? He's legendary for that. Signing day flips, for crying out loud. So, I mean, the kid has to bear some responsibility about the choices he makes. Is my point.
Well, and Johnny, a little known fact. I say little known. I'm not sure that the average fan even realizes this, but signing a letter of intent is not even necessary. I mean, you can theoretically go all the way, to the start of the fall and then sign a scholarship agreement with the school of your choice. So you don't actually have to sign a letter of intent and ever become unrecruitable by other institutions. So in some ways, I would almost recommend, if I were advising, again, thankfully I'm not for their sake, but if I were advising a 4 or 5 star, I would probably tell them, don't sign a letter of intent at all. Don't get yourself committed to an institution like that. If something were to happen in the spring or summer, you can get out of and go anywhere and be immediately eligible. But there is another benefit in signing early, is if you're a 3-star recruit or a little recruited player, you don't have the benefit of holding out and assuming that offer is still going to be there. So for a kid like that, I think that is another benefit of an early signing period, because for kids in that situation, they can, basically jump on the offer and make sure it's available to them.
Jim Harbaugh's offended you brought that up.
No, I think is the signing period, national signing period, great for everyone? No, but no one said you had to do it, right? It's good for some kids who can do it, and those are the ones who should do it. It's like someone complaining about an HOV lane in traffic. Well, it doesn't make it. It's not for everyone. It's not for me. Okay, then don't get in it. But for some people, it's good for them.
There are actually people that complain about HOV lanes.
I don't know, but Kyle, there are people who think they're real vampires out there. So I'm sure there's people who.
Are you saying there aren't?
see, yeah. So there's my point.
There's my headline for the podcast. Johnny claims there are no vampires.
What an idiot!
I'm gonna have to rethink our podcast.
Yeah, but no, of course it's not good for everyone. And yeah, that 4 or 5 star kid, if he's like your friend or nephew there in Columbus, Ohio, and as someone savvy like you, in the recruiting rules, hey, if you sign that puts you on the hook. This gives the university leverage. It gives you less leverage. They're not going to pull anything from you. You can play. You go to spring ball, summer class, whatever. You're fine. Well, then maybe he doesn't need to do it if he's not. And like Corey said, and if he's not completely locked in, whatever. But a 3-star kid who feels like if he doesn't show absolute commitment, the school will show up elsewhere, then fine. That's great. That's great for him. Just because a rule exists doesn't mean it has to be ideal for everyone.
Well, guys, I appreciate you burning the midnight oil, or in the way Corey would say it, burning the 1 a.m. oil.
Why are you so mean?
But seriously, aside from the fact you tolerated me for 45 minutes, we tolerated all the issues we were having. So it was a lot of fun as usual. Johnny, I don't envy you. You get to go back to your day job and putting up with him once a week. Meanwhile, I get to have Mark Givler on the next episode, and we got to have some real professionalism here on the show again.
Well, that was a low blow. The bright line in all this is Corey and I get to release our show in everyone's least favorite day of the week. So there's that.
Now, seriously though, guys, I'm glad you're aboard. I was glad you're able to do this. I think it's great for both of us, and I know I love your show, and I'm getting a lot of good feedback, and I think you guys are too. So. Corey, all jokes aside, I also thank you. Seriously, though, I appreciate you coming on again today.
I don't know who to trust anymore.
Yeah, we appreciate you having us, Kyle. Your show's brought a lot of legitimacy, and I'm liking the partnership right now.
Yeah, same here. Speaking of the partnership, you guys may have seen this on Twitter. I posted this the other day. If you are a business owner or business manager and you are interested in advertising with us, the Scarlet and Great and Unscripted Ohio podcast, please email me, Kyle at buckeyegrove.com. I think we could help you. We've got some great introductory rates, and we've got a very, very passionate audience. I promise you, anybody that is willing to tolerate us 3 days a week are very passionate about the Buckeyes. So please get in touch if you are interested. Of course, you can hear Corey and Johnny on the Scarlet and Great podcast every Wednesday. And you can hear us on Unscripted Ohio every Monday and Friday on Buckeye Grove. And you can catch both of the podcasts all 3 days a week. You can catch on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Anyhow, as these guys are cracking up in the background,
11th hour thing, it said "Hold my beer."
Yeah, as these guys are trying to get me off track, I'm gonna finish this out to the outro. Thanks for listening. We will be back again on, good grief, what a day is it? We'll be back again on Monday, everybody. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend. Go Bucks.
You can get new episodes of Unscripted Ohio on Mondays and Fridays exclusively at BuckeyeGrove.com or anytime on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all things Ohio State.